Hello, welcome back to the book set Completionist. My name is Tom. Today we're at episode 16, and well, there's nothing special. It's just one of those in-between episodes, right? One of a dozen. No, I'm kidding. Every episode is special. What am I talking about? What have we got today? A fantasy series. And I'm reviewing a sort of science fiction, speculative fiction novel from the 1970s. Yeah. This one is fantasy, 3 parts in the trilogy. It was written in the 1990s, 95, 6, and 7, written by a female author who is considered one of the best in the genre. She has written many novels. Really prolific author. Who is that? I won't tell you yet. I'll mention the name of this overarching empire, world, realm of the Elderlings. Yeah, that's what it's called. This is an imaginary world where it takes all place, in which it all takes place. And if you don't know it by now, I'm going to reveal the author's name, and that is Robin Hobb. Okay, this is the first trilogy she ever wrote. It's called the Farseer Trilogy, and here are the individual books. Part 1, Assassin's Apprentice. Part 2, Royal Assassin, and Assassin's Quest is the final part. But there's more. There are more trilogies. There are more, even bigger sets and trilogies in this whole universe, of which some I might own a few too, and they might appear in later videos. Who knows? Well, they will. But when? I won't tell you that. Right, let's take a closer look because it looks nice. Let's take a closer look at these Robin Hobbs. The first one, Assassin's Apprentice. The Farseer. Okay, what do we see? An old guy holding a candle and a boy with his dog. I think that's significant somehow. As always, we're looking for maps. Okay, there is one map. The 6 duchies. What? Duchies? Am I right? They just mean different parts of a kingdom. Barons, Buck, Ripon, Shokes, Barrow, and Tilth. Okay. Not a massive map for a fantasy trilogy to take place in. Yeah, the whole trilogy takes place there. I've already checked. The other books have the same map. Royal Assassin. So there. That same boy. Isn't that the same dog? Hard to say. This might look a little bit... This looks more like a wolf. That one looks more like a... What's it? Labrador. Okay, but the boy has grown up. For sure that's the same boy. And then Assassin's Quest. Same guy, right? Same dog. Add a dragon. And a girl riding it. Now there you go. Huh? That's when dragons get involved. Things get more serious. Thin, thicker, well now. Thick 400 plus, thicker 600 plus, thickest 700 plus pages. So if you get drawn into this series, and the farther you go, the bigger the books get. But that's not a problem, is it? Not at all. Okay, there you go. The Farseer Trilogy, part of the Realm of the Elderlings. Today I'm reviewing an anthology. What's that? An anthology is a kind of book that collects the stories of different authors with a sort of common theme. In this case, the year 2000. An anthology is usually edited by somebody famous to draw in the crowd. Like, oh look, that famous author. That's the name I see on the cover. But wait. Oh, wait, it's an anthology. He didn't write that himself. Or at least he did, but only one part of it. Harry Harrison. I don't know if that's still a famous name today. Probably it isn't. But back in the day it was. This was published in the 1970 itself, yes. So that's a lot longer ago than maybe you realize. 55 years. Gosh. Okay, so we've got an anthology. There are 13 authors in this book, and they are all writing about the year 2000 from the perspective of the 1960s, because that's when these stories were written. And, well, it's not as relevant as it was when it was published, because we're in 25 already. It is interesting, though, to see what the authors of that time thought about the future, between like 30 and 35 years into the future. What was their vision? How did they speculate the future to be? So this is not really science fiction, it's speculative fiction, because we won't see many aliens in here. What we will see is sort of post-apocalyptic hellscapes, yeah, utopian worlds, perhaps. Well, let's see. I'll give you a short rundown of each story, and well, then you can decide whether you want to read this, although probably a bit hard to find. All right, there are some names on the cover that some science fiction fans might recognize, like Brian Aldiss, Keith Laumer, Robert Silverberg, and Mr. Harrison himself contributed too. And so what is it about? The first story is about post-scarcity, right? Post-scarcity future means that there is no more struggle to obtain anything. All resources are abundant, money and food is everywhere, and people don't have to worry. Or do they? Because in this story, in this future, in this year 2000, America has become sort of ecological heaven. It's all electric vehicles and no pollution, and people are happy. But there is still the communist threat. All right, in the 1960s, it was still sort of the heyday of the fight against communism. And this author, Mr. Leiber, he imagined that in the year 2000 there would still be such a communist force, even much stronger than it was in the 60s, because now, in the year 2000, in this story, all communist countries in the world have united, and they called it the Communist Collective or the Communist League, something like that, and America is, of course, their enemy. And that's an interesting idea. Did it happen in the year 2000? No. Does it happen now? No, it still hasn't happened. I don't expect it to happen either. Communism is not that popular anymore. Huh? The second story is about new technology. It's sort of a magnetic drive spaceship, sort of. Think of it as a bus. If you want to travel from one continent to another, now in the year 2000, you can take a magnetically powered people carrier that goes into the stratosphere and then travels to wherever you want to go rather quickly. Did it exist in 2000? No. Does it exist now? Still not. The fourth story is much more relatable because it doesn't involve any new technology. It just talks about how society has changed, how family values have changed. This is about a guy who works in a safari park in Kenya. He's one of the game wardens. He takes care of the park. And he's a father of a teenage son, and he's not happy about the son. And so the son has become sort of lazy, addicted to TV, and only watches TV. They don't talk anymore. It's like, yeah, what it was like in the 60s probably, or shortly after with the invention of the television and how widely popular that thing became. And so that's about his family unit that has changed because of new technology. In his job, he meets sort of elders on the safari grounds. There are still sort of nomadic farmers who carry around their cattle, their cows, but they're not allowed to do that in the safari park, so this guy has to remove them. And so there's another conflict between generations. So, interesting theme. That's one of the only few of the stories that has come true already in the year 2000 and still today, and probably will continue to go on. Societies change all the time. What can you expect? Then the next story, number 5, is about sort of post-apocalyptic world where, well, nuclear holocaust has taken place. The survivors are affected by that with in terms of their bodies, their biology. We see mutations happening. And at the same time, there are efforts going on to move away from this planet, to establish colonies on different planets. And in order to prepare the space travelers for those new worlds where the conditions are different, lower gravity, for example, or higher ones, women, they can monitor their pregnancies and they can see whether their babies have these mutations that are favorable for space travel. And this story is about a woman who becomes pregnant by choice of such mutant so that she can produce one of the colonists for the future Earth colonies. Yeah, right? Yeah, interesting topic. All these stories are pretty short, 10, 15 pages. And I think this one, Naomi Mitchison is the author of that one. I think it deserves to be a full-length novel. Unfortunately, she is no longer among us, but it could have been. Maybe some new author wants to pick it up. Why not? Then there's a story that deals with consciousness. In here, a man has been transported into the year 2000, but only through his consciousness. He's no longer in his own body. He probably died in the 60s, but his consciousness was harvested from his body and transported into the future. And the future is, again, sort of utopian, yeah, where there is no more struggle. People are always happy, and basically there's nothing left to fight for. And this has caused all of humanity to become quite inert, not doing anything, and it's slowly sort of exterminating the entire race. The human race will go extinct because of a lack of purpose, and people in that future are now trying to retrieve the consciousness of one of the leaders of a sort of societal movement that at the time tried to change things for the better, and that change has materialized, but it hasn't resulted in anything good. Eventually, it's now like a dead society without any struggles left. And so now these people want to bring back this guy to create a new sort of revolutionary movement so that they can save the human race. Pretty interesting concept. Then there's a story by Brian Aldiss, who is a famous science fiction writer of that period. I'm not sure if he's still alive. But the story is a bit odd. It's about a white guy who is doing sort of charity work in India. He's taking care of hungry people. There's been a famine, and he's distributing food among the local people. He's also involved with a local girl, and he's also experiencing some sort of weird mental illness where he hears voices in his head who tell him sentences of what people are about to say only minutes after. Premonitions are, but it doesn't really help him at all. He just goes crazy slowly. I don't know what the point is, just to say that in India there will be droughts and there will be starving people in the year 2000. Okay, it's not a very ambitious idea, not sure. But he is a good writer, and the story is solid in its own way. The writing is good, but not very interesting, to be honest. There's also a story about a man who has been in cryo sleep, right, where you freeze your body so you can stay alive for many, many years, even into the future. This guy has woken up from an earlier period, maybe the 1960s, and he's waking up in the year 2000, and he has to find a job. He is qualified as a sea captain, and somehow he ends up in command of one of the biggest cargo vessels around at the time, which has been developed with all the modern technologies and navigational systems. And well, I don't know much about seafaring vessels, but you can imagine any kind of technological progress in that area. Well, he has to go into that ship not really knowing anything about what's going on, but he's leading his crew, and his crew is kind of feeling like, well, what's this old guy doing here? But then an accident occurs, the whole technology of the ship shuts down, and this old sea captain guy has to resort to, well, very archaic ways of sailing a boat. So he's rigging up sails on a massive cargo vessel. You can imagine, but somehow it works. It's sort of an interesting idea about how older people can still be useful in modern society, perhaps. Yes, this one, next one, by Robert Silverberg, one of the most, I don't know, famous authors of the day. He's got lots of his books. And he's taking a few chances with this one. He's writing a story about how New York in the year 2000 has been transformed into an almost entirely black city, meaning there's only African Americans who live there. There are a few white tourists who come in every now and then, but it's completely black. All the white people have been, well, scared off. They don't want to live there anymore. There were some racial tensions in the 1960s, and Silverberg imagined that to still be the case in the year 2000, and has, well, the segregation has advanced to a point where one big city, maybe the biggest city in the world, has completely turned black. And there is still anger among the population. There's a young teenager who still is influenced by the leaders of that time, like Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, those guys. And he meets a white guy, a tourist. This tourist visits New York, and this tourist looks at the beautiful black girls who walk around. And this teenager sees that, and he feels scared. He feels angry, like, "Hey, yo, this white guy's looking at the black girls. How dare he?" And so he has this idea to lure this guy into a dark alley and try to, mutilate him. And as he's about to do that, he is stopped by a black police officer, because still the law applies. Even the black people realize they cannot just turn New York into a city of evil where no white person ever wants to come. But yeah, as Robert Silverberg, he is a white guy, old white guy. So for him to be writing in this perspective, I don't know if he had done that, in this time, in this very sensitive era that we live in now. I don't think people would have, well, allowed him to do that. Like, oh no, you're appropriating black culture. You're not supposed to write about that because you're not black yourself. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, bold choice. There's a story in which the author imagines that the entire English language has been changed into a complete incoherent mix of gibberish and modernisms. I don't know. I didn't connect with that at all. The next one is more interesting. It's about society in the year 2000, where overpopulation has led to some very strict population control policies. So pregnancies are basically banned. You cannot get pregnant unless you have permission from the government. And it's very hard to get that permission. A politician who is responsible for that legislation finds himself in a conflict where his own son has made a woman pregnant illegally, and the woman is now at his doorstep begging for help. So here again, you've got the conflict between your personal family and your political beliefs, if they really are your own political beliefs, or if you just want to gain power. I don't think a lot of politicians personally believe in the policies that they propose, but they just want to enact them to secure their own positions. Yeah, that was a good one. Then there's a story about where a war victim who was gravely injured has been transformed into this cyborg bioengineered RoboCop almost. He has only retained his brain, his eyes, and part of his spine. Everything else about him is artificial. And they have given him certain parts there below to still satisfy the women that he meets. It's a bit silly, nothing deep. There's a story about how the world has become devoid of food, or at least there's a big demand for food. Overpopulation, again, is the cause of that. And there is a scientist who lives at the bottom of the ocean in a lab who tries to find food sources in the deep sea, an area that's still to this day very much unexplored. And this scientist is locating schools of fish so that he can catch them and send them back to meet his quotas. But every time he finds a school of fish, there are these deep sea creatures, squid-like organisms, perhaps not very terrestrial. They could be aliens. And these squid aliens are stealing the fish. And at some point, these squid aliens are trying to enter his lab, and he goes out to meet them. For some reason, he feels drawn to them, and he disappears, and he leaves behind a log in which he explains what happened to him. Interesting concept as well. And the final story is by Mr. Harrison himself. In that story, he envisions society to be in a state of civil war again, in America, that is. But this time the civil war is between black people and white people. It's not explained how that came to be, but we meet a white journalist who is maybe a little bit more tanned than the regular white person like me. And this journalist goes into a group of black guerrilla soldiers, guerrilla, not gorilla, guerrilla fighters who are trying to fight the white enemy through that kind of sort of Viet Cong warfare style. This was written in the 60s. At the time the Vietnam War was going on, Mr. Harrison envisioned, again, that kind of fighting to be applied in the Civil War in America at the time. And this group of black soldiers captures a white soldier, and well, you can imagine what happens. Interesting concept. It reads more like a war novel, but I wish he had gone into a little bit more detail as to why that whole, I mean, there has always been racial tensions, especially again at that time. Why did it lead to an all-out civil war? It's not explained. Should have been a proper novel, I think. It would have been better, but still interesting. And there you go. So the majority of these stories talk about a vision for the year 2000 that has not happened. It didn't happen in the year 2000 and still hasn't happened now. I also don't imagine it to happen another 35 years into the future, let's say 2060. A lot of these things just are too far-fetched. Or are they? I don't know. Technology, at least, doesn't seem to develop as fast as the authors imagined it to do. Or, yeah, why is that? I don't know. Yeah, an anthology, short stories. So I personally prefer full-length novels because I can invest into the characters. This time you have to start over every time, but it does allow you to just finish a story quickly, and you don't have to worry that if it's a bad one, you'll be stuck with it and just move on to the next. So yeah, I do recommend it. It's probably impossible to find this novel because, well, I've never seen it except the copy that I own. If you can find it, take it. But if not, all right, it's not amazing. You could probably do without it. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.